going to read it as written. Based on Assemblyman Barron's bill, if Brooklyn Tech's freshman class next year went from 7% to 40% African American boys and girls, what percentage of these students would graduate with a B- or higher in 4 years for graduation?
What kind of question is that?
That's a weird question.
It wouldn't go to
It
40%.
depends on what the admissions criteria are. I mean, what I've, there are ways to do the admissions criteria that would, if they're better predictors, it's likely that students will still succeed. As for the, specifics of the mayor's proposal, I can't really address that. I can say, I think with confidence, although I don't actually have the data, that if you took the top 7% citywide using the mayor's, rather than 7% from within the school, if you took that 7% using his index, they would do well, and you would significantly increase diversity. When you start breaking it down by school, I don't have the data to look at that, but I'm encouraged by the fact that they would be within the top 25% citywide. So I don't think there's a really single answer to that, and the kind of research I did, as I said, doesn't point to a specific unique proposal.
Anyone have anything to add?
I would just say that we believe that the students that are selected by this criteria, and we talked a little bit about what the diversity of that group would be be just as successful in the specialized high schools. They'll do great. There are enormously talented kids all over New York City, in every neighborhood, and this would give them a shot, and we know that they would knock it out of the park. So we're confident.
I want to read this one because it comes from a slightly different perspective than we've heard in the previous questions. I would like to bring to your attention the unintended negative consequences of your program on high-achieving Black and Latinx schools. My son attends the Dock Street School, a high-achieving public middle school. Sorry, I can't read every word, but the new proposal would only allow 7 of our students. We agree and want more Black and Latinx representation at the specialized schools. So I think the point is to get at this, is there an unintended consequence for Black and Latinx students who are in high achieving middle schools in terms of capping, in a sense, their potential admission?
Thanks. Another really thoughtful question, and thanks for all of these. I think what I would say to this is we believe that taking this consistent approach to all middle schools across the city is the best and fairest way of running the process. And I do think that, going back to some earlier points, a couple things. One is there are lots of fantastic high school options out there. And we believe that we don't want to get too focused on these 8, though we want to have a better, fairer way of doing that. And so the more talent we have from all over New York City headed into those high schools, the better off the whole system will be. I also think that this points to another question that I'm glad this debate has helped start, which is the fact that in New York City, about a third of our high school seats are screened. And that produces a certain dynamic, a certain way the system looks, and a certain set of outcomes. And I think one of the questions that we as an administration and our citywide school diversity advisory group, which we're very happy to have Maya Wiley co-chairing, is looking at. What are the unintended consequences of that, of having almost a third of our high school seats screened, when no other city has anything close to that, and what would be the consequences if we imagine something different? And it's something we have to think carefully about. We're not rushing into it, but I think it's important that group is exploring it and asking those questions, and whether there are better, fairer ways of doing that work.
This is, interesting question again. Can an individual specialized high school choose to adopt the new admissions measures In other words, can they self-actualize a change, or does it require the legislation?
It requires state legislative change for the specialized high schools to change. Yeah, let me, so I can answer this one and explain what our view is, and I know there are sort of thoughtful folks that disagree about this. So our read of this is that what the law says is that it covers the 3 original specialized high schools and then any school that has been designated by the chancellor. And so now that we have 8 schools that have been designated by a chancellor, those are the specialized high schools, and they're all covered by state law. Our view is, and I can see heads shaking in the audience, and we all have the same, those that are shaking their heads, I share the goal of changing this. But the mayor and chancellor believe that we need a solution for all 8 schools. So we want to move forward with a comprehensive solution. About 80% of the students in specialized high schools are in those 3. And in order to move on the 5, we would have to undo their status as a specialized high school. And we don't want to do that. We want to change the way we admit students to specialized high schools. We don't want to make specialized high schools into something else. And so that is the reason for our view of that particular issue. But I understand that there are people in good faith that disagree with that.
So I have a couple that are specific to state tests and how that impacts the proposal. So one question is, if you're looking for a better measure of student success, why would you use the state test as this measure after the tremendous controversy around the test and the measurement and evaluation of it? Seems like a stopgap measure. And then the other question around, will there be changes foreseen for the 7th grade state tests given the current format? These will be, there will be a lot of compression of scores at the top end, resulting in many identical scores. So I'll just throw those 2 since they both relate to state level testing.
Okay. I'm sorry, the first part of the question was why use the state test scores?
Yeah.
So I think we wanted to find, again, a way, our mandate was to try to use multiple measures, to try to find a way to ensure that the students that we selected would succeed in those schools, and to try to generate a more diverse and more representative group. And I think we settle on state test scores as one way of looking at how the students compare to students all across the city and not just within their school. We thought it was good to look within school and across the city. And we believe that the state test scores, the state tests are better and better, and that they do in this case measure a student's mastery of the material that we've asked them to learn in school. The chancellor has a great line about this, which is that when he talks about the specialized high school, he says, all during a student's career, we tell them what to do. We tell them, go to school, try to learn the material, study hard, do well in your classes, except when you're ready to get into one of the most elite high schools in the city, then forget all of that and just study for this one test that has nothing to do with your classes and do well for 3 hours on one day. I think we believe that the state test scores, they're designed to test whether a student successfully mastered the material we've asked them to learn, and so they are a fairer, better way of doing this than the specialized high school.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask you about the 8 schools. So only 3 are covered under the law. The chancellor could conceivably say, okay, these other 5 no longer specialize. And the advantage to doing that would be if you want to show that the multiple criteria works for all the schools, instead of spending all your time going through the legislature. And then now you have an experiment.
Yeah.
And then you can see over the next 3, 4, 5 years, if these students do just as well when you admit them in multiple criteria, then you can go back to the peoples and say, peoples, now we're going to do this. And then they might not be happy. They have no choice but to agree, because then you love science.
So this is turning into a debate rather than the fact finding. No. I don't mean that as a judgment for the question, because I think it's a really legitimate and important line of discussion. I'm just paying more attention to the fact that we have questions focused, that I don't want to lose people's questions that are related to the test and testing. since that's the subject. So Josh, if you want to respond to that, I'm just worried about time. And there's a very important question I want to make sure we answer, because I think it's very important, and I'm going to add myself to it, although I was not named in it, which was, you obviously were, Josh, so this question is, but for the rest of us, are all or any of you involved with the mayor's plan on SHSAT reform? So let's just go down the line. Dr. Ali, did you play any role in this plan?
No.
Dr. Pickett?
No, I'm working with lower grade parents who want to opt out of it.
Okay, and nor did I, and not just nor did I as my Wiley, but the School Diversity Advisory Group was not a participant in any discussion around the plan. It was actually something that we were informed of just, I think, 2 days before the announcement. So just for clarity, I just want to make sure everyone knows, none of these panelists, with the exception of Josh, had any role in the plan or in the draft legislation. A couple of more back to the SHSAT itself is, what is the, because I don't think we covered this, but what is the lowest score that would predict success in the specialized high schools, based on the SHSAT, obviously?
I don't think there really is a good answer to that question. As I said, when you get below the very top scores, and students are all over the map as to how they will do, and it's not a very good predictor at all. So there is probably a score below which no one will succeed. I mean, this scores range from 40 to, I think there's a theoretical top score of 800. I've never seen anything much above 700. But, you know, probably someone with a 300 or a 350 is not going to succeed. But when you get around the cutoff of 479, if you go down to 430, 440, it's kind of, excuse the expression, it's a crapshoot. You don't really know how students are going to do. They're all over the map. But yes, there is probably a score below which no one will succeed.
Any other? Okay. All right, we're at our last couple of questions I just want to get in that I don't think we've touched on. So this here, sorry, and I hope I'm reading this correctly. As a graduate of Stuyvesant, I took the test and was successful. The number of minority students was significant. Why did the test work then, but not now?
There are some historical shifts that happened in the late 80s, early 90s. So one thing was, for those of us of a certain age who grew up in the city in the public schools, we had honors classes in pretty much with the detracking movement of the mid to late 80s. And so honors classes begin to disappear and special ed classes begin to disappear. Good thing, bad thing, it's a thing as far as I'm concerned. Another thing that happens is in the mid to late 80s, you begin to have test prep.
My research that the test doesn't work. I mean, students that have gone to Stuyvesant have done extremely well. We, of course, don't know if we had done the kind of research I did 40 years ago, what you would have found. It might have been very different. And that's something important to understand about validity, that validity is not something that's inherent in the test. It's something that's specific to the test and is a given population for a given purpose. But today, you know, again, the students are doing well at these schools. I certainly wouldn't say they're not. But given the outcomes in terms of diversity, the only, I think, legal and ethical justification you can have for those outcomes is if the admissions criterion is a good admissions criterion. And my results show that there are better criteria that could be used that would lead to more diverse representation. So this is not to say that those students who are going to Stuyvesant now are not currently terrific. I'm sure they all are terrific. But we could maybe maintain those standards and also have more diversity, and it's hard to justify those outcomes of this based on this exam.
Since this has been focused on the test, we haven't talked on this panel about the research about how racial diversity, gender diversity, all different forms of diversity actually improve educational outcomes. That hopefully will be another panel at another day. But here's an important question that also hasn't been posed yet. I want to make sure before we close it gets posed. I believe that using multiple assessments, which are teacher directed, so going to switching this strategy poses elevated grades by teachers who will favor certain students. So I guess this is a question about, does this plan add subjectivity? That means that teachers might influence unfairly for some students as opposed to others.
I think this goes back to why we believe multiple measures are important. Because I think that if you look at any one measure in isolation, you can begin to find weaknesses with it. And again, I mean, I don't think anybody here would claim that there is a perfect way to make these decisions, but we believe when you look at multiple sources of data, when you look at 4 different grades over the course of a year, and when you look at state test scores, and you look at those all in combination with one another, you come up with a better, fairer way of making these distinctions. I think that, again, that's the virtue of using multiple measures to make these sorts of decisions, is that it's more reliable and fair.
Yes.
I think broadly we have to look at this and just take a step back and say, these are sorting mechanisms, right? And some kids are going to lose out in the sorting, and some kids are going to do better in the sorting, whether it's test only, multiple criteria. I mean, you're talking 3-4 criteria. Harvard has dozens, literally, of criteria that they use to figure it out, and they screw it up too. And so there's going to be people who lose out. There's going to be people who win. There's going to be people who win properly, and some people who win unfairly.
In gathering my thoughts for tonight, I was reminded of the period of time in the city when there was open enrollment starting in the city universities. And it seems to have echoes in some ways in my mind to what's happening now with the idea of opening up the doors more to people from different backgrounds with diversity, integration. Now, that was quite controversial. Over the years, going from objective testing to more, let's say, multiple criteria, there's been debate, it's evolved. There's been testing brought back into it. Herman Badillo was an advocate of using tests and reinstituting them at the colleges because a lot of students needed remedial support. But I think what we're seeing here is kind of has the flavor of some of those arguments, those historical arguments, and things sort of work themselves out. And I read an article this weekend about the CUNYs, one of the city schools, allowing more minority students into nursing programs who are doing quite well. So it seems to me that solutions come about, whether we feel that they're big, but they usually work themselves out.
We are going to need to close out, and I want to recognize that Assemblymember Mosley has been here patiently, and we're so thankful for the co-sponsorship with Assemblymember Simon. I want to acknowledge before I run out that there were several cards. I tried to give voice to all the cards that had challenging questions and not select. But there are a number of cards that essentially state that this panel is biased and is not representative of different viewpoints in terms of the SHSAT. And I just want to say what I was told by Assemblymember Simon when she asked me to moderate. What she said was, we want this to be a fact-based, obviously there are opinions on this panel, I don't want to suggest that there aren't, but that the purpose of the panel was to pull out the facts about what we knew about the SHSAT. And I think we can all have a large degree of difference about how we go about fixing our educational system. I don't think there's one way, I don't think there's one path. I do think, though, there are facts, a set of facts that we know, and what we were trying to do was pull them forward so that we had a fact-based debate about what we need to do about our schools. And I think, and just as a personal reflection, just with deep gratitude for the work and knowledge that you all brought forward, as a parent who had kids in the New York City public school system, but also someone who's looked at racial equity issues for a long time, I don't think there's any question that one of the problems we have is that we should be paying attention to the educational opportunities of Asian students in the public school system. I don't think that's an issue that we should be ignoring. And we have to find a path to a shared set of opportunities that works for all of us. And that hopefully works for all of us to improve all of our kids' educational opportunities. So, I want to thank all of those who posed the challenging